Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Demma, and we're here at One Rotary Center with Rotary International President Mark Maloney. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Let us know where you're tuning in from in the comments. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. You're nearly 2 months into your term. Where have you been and what have you learned so far?
Well, Gay and I have had the opportunity to already begin our travels. I have been to the World Scout Jamboree.
Okay.
And joined something like 25,000 scouts and 35 to 40,000 people total at the World Scout Jamboree in West Virginia. And this was only the second World Scout Jamboree in the United States and the first in 50 years. It happens once every 4 years. And so we had the opportunity to tour the Scout Jamboree at this great facility, the Summit Bechtel Reserve in West Virginia. And I had the opportunity to have a special meeting with interactors from around the world who happened to be at the Scout Jamboree, and then an afternoon session with Scouters. And many of the Scouters are like adults who are still actively involved in Scouting as supporters. And we had Rotarians from around the world, from India, from Japan, Korea, South America, almost every continent, who came to this meeting. Gay and I, the very next day after I got back from that, Gay and I left for an 8-day, 5-city tour of Japan.
Oh, how was that?
And that was incredible. The Japanese Rotarians were such gracious hosts. We went from the north of the country in Hachinohe in Aomori Prefecture, worked our way through Fukushima, and we saw the aftermath of the devastating earthquake and tsunami there and the work that Rotarians are doing. Worked our way to Tokyo, Kamakura, and Nagoya. So from the north of Japan down into central Japan. And, you know, the Japanese Rotarians, they conduct their meetings and their events differently than we do in the United States. It's a much more formal event than the typical event is at a United States Rotary Club. But you know, the one thing that struck me, even though we're very different, we're really so much the same. They're more like us than we ever could have imagined because they are so dedicated to Rotary service. What we saw in support of Rotaract clubs, we went to a Rotaract meeting. We were at a nursing home in Nagoya, and we did origami sunflowers with the residents of the nursing home and a local Rotaract club. We saw the work that Rotarians were doing to recover from the disaster in Fukushima Prefecture. We had the opportunity to present the club charter to an Interact club at Kita Kamakura Junior and Senior Girls High School. I think I've got the whole title in there, in Kamakura, Japan. And that was just an incredible opportunity. Through the entire 8 days was an incredible opportunity. And while we were in the neighborhood, we came back through Honolulu, Hawaii. Now the neighborhood, that's an 8-hour plane flight, but when you're coming from Alabama, Japan and Hawaii are in the same neighborhood.
Sure.
And we had the opportunity to go thank the Rotarians of Honolulu, of Hawaii, and District 5000 for all the work they're putting into organizing the 111th Rotary International Convention in Honolulu. You've heard we're having a convention in Honolulu, I hope.
I have, and I can't wait. We're actually looking forward to that event as well as your upcoming presidential conferences. I know that we'll have one in Honolulu as part of the convention experience. Can you tell us a little bit about what those presidential conferences are going to look like and what we can look forward to?
Well, of course, one of my emphases this year is to create greater awareness of Rotary's relationship with the United Nations.
Yes.
Many Rotarians do not realize that Rotary was involved in the formation of the United Nations. Rotary, as a separate non-governmental organization, was invited to participate at the UN Charter Conference in San Francisco in 1945. In addition to Rotary having its own distinct delegation, which consisted of the General Secretary and some past presidents of Rotary International, there were also Rotarians that were members of various national delegations. So there were something like 40 to 50 Rotarians involved in the UN Charter Conference. Well, June 26, 2020 is the 75th anniversary of the signing of the UN Charter back in 1945. So because of that, I am trying to focus Rotarians on the partnership and the relationship that we have with the United Nations. So we begin the year on November 9 with Rotary Day at the United Nations. Now that is an annual event. That happens every year. Last year it was in Nairobi at the UN in Nairobi. The year before it was at the UN in Geneva, Switzerland. But this year we're going back to the United Nations headquarters in New York City, and Rotary Day at the UN will be on Saturday, November 9. At the beginning of 2020, we will have 3 presidential conferences in various locations around the world. The first of those will be in late February at the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean in Santiago de Chile. Then we move to the UNESCO headquarters at the end of March for a presidential conference in Paris. That's the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. And finally, on May 8 or 9, we are going to be at the Food and Agriculture Organization headquarters in Rome for another presidential conference. And each of those 3 presidential conferences is going to focus on Rotary's relationship with various United Nations agencies. Then finally, on June 5, which is World Environment Day, on the Friday before the opening of the International Convention in Honolulu, we will have this final celebration of Rotary's relationship with the United Nations in conjunction with the Water and Sanitation Rotarian Action Group and the Environmental Sustainability and Rotarian Action Group. A final celebration just before the convention. You can come early, participate in this UN event, and then enjoy the entire convention in Honolulu.
Well, what I'm really looking forward to this year is that there's so many opportunities around the world for Rotarians and friends to hear from you and from each other, learn together, bring tactics back to their own clubs to really grow Rotary. So I know that is one of your goals, it's your presidential theme. Why is that so important to you?
Well, we must grow Rotary, and that involves growing our service, growing the impact of our projects, but most importantly, growing our membership so that we can achieve more, so that we have more hands to do the work, more brains to solve the problems.
Yeah.
And so I am incredibly focused on growing Rotary. And to me, there are 2 facets to growing Rotary. We must continue to support our clubs and provide them with the tools to attract and engage new members.
Sure.
And you've heard me say this before. I've said it at the International Assembly. I've said it at the International Convention. But I believe we must be more organized and strategic in our membership development efforts. Too often, we have great organization and great skills in organizing club service projects, in organizing club fundraisers. But when it comes to membership, some clubs seem to throw those organizational skills out the window and just say, y'all, find some new members.
Sure.
I think we must be more organized, and I'm asking each Rotary Club in the world to have a multiple member club membership committee. Now, I can go on and I could take another 30 minutes talking about what I'd like the club membership committee to do, but I suggest that Rotarians go to my Rotary, at rotary.org, look under the membership development pages, and you will find a one-page outline, suggested outline of the activities for a club membership committee. Now, I know that seems unusual that an attorney like me would only have a one-page document like that, but the staff worked on me hard to make sure that I had a one-page document. The other aspect of Grow Rotary is that we need new Rotary clubs. We have communities where we have great Rotary clubs, but because of the day that the club meets, or the way in that the club meets, or the cost of the club, it's not attractive to certain segments of the community. There's nothing wrong with that Rotary Club. They're thriving. They're doing great work.
Sure.
But there's other segments of the community that are just simply not served by the way that Rotary Club operates.
So how do we serve more people?
We serve more people by having other Rotary Clubs that meet in alternative ways. There may not be, there's nothing in the constitutional documents that says food must be involved in a Rotary meeting. And that's shocking to many Rotarians. Everybody expects a Rotary meeting to have a meal, but it's not required. If a group of new Rotarians wants to just meet for a service project, that's great. If they want to meet at the end of the workday at a bar and have a drink and discuss how they're going to undertake their service, that's great.
Sure.
There are many different, innovative, alternative ways for Rotary clubs to be formed that are not just in the traditional format. And we need to encourage that innovation and flexibility.
Absolutely. And I know that, coming up in the fall, in just a few short months, one of the ways in which we're asking clubs to get involved is to register their own events for World Polio Day. That'll be happening on October the 24th. How can members get involved otherwise?
Well, in addition to registering first off, they need to plan an event. Last year, I think we had 4,000 Rotary clubs plan and register their events in support of polio eradication. Our target for this year is to have 5,000 clubs. Okay. Always want to have bigger and better. We are talking here today on the day after a significant date in Rotary and polio eradication history.
Yes.
Yesterday, August 21st, was the 3rd anniversary of the most recent case of polio in Nigeria. So we have now been 3 years since the last case of polio in Nigeria. If this continues, and of course the surveillance trails the date. Yesterday was the 3rd anniversary, but we've still, you've still got to continue the surveillance.
Sure.
But we are now in a position that we have some expectation that by mid-2020, it will be determined that polio has been eradicated in Nigeria. If that is the case, all of Africa can be certified as free of polio. And that will mean that of the 6 World Health Organization regions around the world, 5 of those 6 will be declared polio-free. We still need to focus our efforts on Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we must not stop our immunization efforts all over the globe so that we don't have some case come and be transmitted by a traveling person.
Sure.
But we are another step closer to eradicating polio from the face of the earth.
And for all of you guys watching at home, be sure to follow End Polio Now on Facebook for all the latest updates. You can check out the website as well, endpolionow.org. And we'll look forward to World Polio Day. It's going to take every one of us to finally cross that line.
We're looking forward to World Polio Day. The Board of Directors is actually going to be meeting here at Rotary headquarters on that day, and we are going to be participating in one of the live stream events,
Yes.
I think, or the Facebook events. I'm not sure about the technicalities of it, but all the directors and the trustees of the Rotary Foundation will be together that evening to participate and mark World Polio Day right here in Evanston.
Wonderful. I think we have time for just one more question from our audience, if you'll indulge us. One of the most important questions that we get, and something that I think we're always looking to grow, is how can we engage in conversations with fellow citizens who know nothing about Rotary? How do we bring people, into the organization and help them know what we're all about?
I think what we need to do is you don't walk up to someone and start talking to them about Rotary. I think you first engage them somehow in some sort of event that introduces them to Rotary. I was just at such an event on Sunday afternoon in Langley, British Columbia, in Canada. Langley is, I suppose you'd call it a suburb of Vancouver, British Columbia. And 4 Rotary clubs in the Langley area sponsor an annual event, and this was only the second annual event. It's the Langley Rib Fest. And this is an event where they bring in, and in this case it was 5 different barbecue rib teams who compete to see which can be declared the champion barbecued rib. Okay. And I was actually one of a panel of 10 judges. So I got to have one rib from each of the 5 teams that barbecued the ribs. But that's beside the point. This event brought in thousands of people. They weren't Rotarians, but there were Rotarian messages being conveyed from the stage. I was introduced as the president of Rotary International. I got to say a few words about Rotary. There were booths on the grounds where information about Rotary was there. And this was an event that was a family-friendly event. There was a kid zone. I have never seen a human foosball event. Kids would go in, there was bars across this big box, and they'd hang onto the bar and kick the soccer ball, and it was like a human foosball game. And there were several other events. So families would come in, and they were exposed to Rotary. To me, that's the conversation. That's the way that you have a conversation. Not go up, not get a group of people to give them a lecture about Rotary, but have an event that is an attractive, family-friendly event. It's a social event.
Yeah.
They came for their own enjoyment, but they got Rotary information at the same time, and hopefully some of them will be encouraged to participate and join a local Rotary club.
Well, I love that. Thanks so much for joining us, President Mark. We had the best time. To our viewers at home, you can keep up with all of his adventures by following President Mark on the Rotary International President's Facebook page. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.